Hi, my name is Josh, and I'm the audio engineer at Rivet Games. And today I'll be taking you through how I recorded the sounds for the 484 and some of the extra features that you might not know I've put in there. Today I wanted to start off with showing some of the audio equipment that I took to my trip to Isle of Wight. I was very lucky to be able to go and witness the train itself and get a real understanding of how the train works, which was really, really fun. And so here you can see in this first photo, we've got actually some of the actual equipment from left to right. So I'll give a quick, very, very quick explanation. But so we've got a tripod on the left-hand side with a T-bar on the top. So that's used for these stereo microphones that we'll come on to. In the bag, we've got a shotgun microphone, which is inside what's called a blimp, which is it's something that's used to prevent wind from interfering with the recordings, which has a dead cat on top of that, or it's not an actual dead cat. It's called lots of things, that dead cat, wind reflector, you name it. It's the big fluffy thing that you see on television recordings. Then moving to the right of that, we've got the actual microphones at the top. And these were some that I was actually experimenting with. These were very handy for some detail sounds and quite interesting in retrospect into how the train sounds through a microphone, which is something that we don't often listen to in our day-to-day travels. Below that, we've got some wires, very important things, very boring but important things. A notepad at the bottom. Now, this was really handy for my first day in Isle of Wight. To the right of that notepad at the bottom, you can see the Zoom H5, and this is my go-to handheld recorder. Captured everything on the trip, and then at the top right is my camera bag with a little box in there which includes something I was experimenting with on my trip, and that was something called contact microphones. So these work a lot different to regular everyday microphones that I'm speaking through now. Instead, a contact microphone picks up the vibrations through a material. So, for example, if you were to put that on a glass and knock on the glass, you would hear the vibrations traveling from the glass into the contact microphone. Yeah, so that's the equipment that I brought, and here we have, obviously, here's a picture of the train that I got to take around St John's Road. A lovely, lovely journey from Peterhead all the way through to Shanklin. It's a really, really nice route. Very lucky to have some good weather that week. So the first day was travelling, and when I finally arrived there, I was able to jump straight onto the train, and with my notebook and just the handheld recorder, I spent the day travelling up and down and just taking down notes that I found important sounds on, and things that I really needed to take note on for the next day. After that, I also tested out my contact microphones on the journey back and ran into a bit of a problem. So the contact microphones that I purchased have these little M3 sticky backs, basically. So the M3 stands for what type of stickiness is on the back and the amount of stickiness. I didn't realise that, and I spent about a good few minutes trying to pry that from the floor of the 484, and it's still there to this day. So that is the actual bottom plate of the contact microphone that I'd stuck to the floor to record some sounds for. Yeah, it's still there. So if you're travelling to Isle of Wight and you go onto any of the trains, have a look on the floor and see if you can find that. That'll be a little present that I've left for you if you can capture that. So that was a very successful trip, although I did break one of the microphones. It was quite an interesting thing that I think we're going to take into the future of recording for Rivet. There were some really nuanced sounds that we could capture from this. So, for example, on that very space there, I was able to listen back to a lot of the bogey sounds, the bits of jointing sounds that we could capture. And the same for before this picture was taken, I also attached it to the window so we could see if we could capture some of the general running sounds, which was really successful too. When I wasn't breaking equipment, I was also out and about and recording the train from an external point of view. This is a really important part of the recording process because a lot of the sounds will be occluded in the game. So it's better to grab sounds externally and then filter them as the camera changes within the game. So this one, I believe, is taken at Braiding. I was very, very lucky to be able to walk along this bridge, which is currently, well, at the time of the photo, is running along the old dilapidated bridge, which I hope is getting fixed because that's a wonderful, wonderful bridge. This was a prime location, and I had to wait here for quite some time, but it was well worth the wait because just across from the photo, and I'll zoom a little bit in so you can see, we have the whistle signal, and this was perfect for capturing the horn sound that they use on at these locations. As you can see, just up here, there's a little crossing, which is why they use these whistle sounds. And yeah, I was primed and ready to take as much as I could from this section. What was also brilliant about this was that I was able to get a direct recording of the top of the train, and that's where a lot of the external air comes from, the actual traction motor sounds. Yeah, a lot of these external sounds can be heard from right on top, so it was perfect for this. And as you can see, that's the dead cat. That's on the actual microphone. All in all, I spent a whole day recording. This was obviously the day 2. Yeah, it consisted of lots and lots of traveling up and down, trying to find quiet times in the day. As you know, it's also a holiday destination, so that can sometimes change the matter. But yeah, so I successfully captured everything for the trip, and it was then time to go on to processing and getting things ready to go into the game. There's only one thing that I couldn't capture, and I'll be going on to next to show you how I could recreate that using reference material from other sources. So we'll go on to that next. So now we're in my digital audio workstation, so that's Reaper. One of the things that I couldn't capture, no matter how much time I spent in Isle of Wight, is unfortunately the actual whistle sound itself. When you get to the whistle signs, they sound the horn, which is I believe, the higher tone of the actual selector. So the whistle tone is only used in emergency situations, and fortunately, I suppose, there was no high alert, so that's very good. So instead, what I decided to do is use an old technique where we will find a reference material of the sound and recreate it using other sounds. So in this example, we have a recording of somebody who has access to the actual train itself, the train driver. They've been able to actually play that whistle sound. So you'll have a little listen to it now.
Whistle. Can I do that? Can I do that? You have a go, yeah. Look at that.
And the astute of you may know where it's from. So from this recording of the whistle, it's a very limited recording because don't forget we have to make this into a loopable sound for the game, as that's one of the features. So we'll listen back to that whistle one more time.
Can I do that? Can I do that? You have a go, yeah. Look at that, mate.
So these are the 2 whistle tones here that he plays. It goes do, do, so that's the twice. So from this little recording here, I was able to actually find out, do a lot of research and find out what type of whistle the 484 has. So by selecting this, and if I loop this now, you'll see in the top right the oscilloscope, which gives you a reading of the frequencies of that sound. And you'll see 3 tones from this sound, which gives us the signal that it's a 3-tone whistle. And you'll see that here.
Go, yeah.
Actually, it might help if I was on the frequency.
Go, yeah.
There we are.
Go, yeah. Go, yeah. Go, yeah.
So you can see those 3 there. So from that, I was able to actually grab those frequencies, and here they are played through sine waves. So very harsh sounding, but you can see I was able to grab both the pitch and the amplitude of those that whistle. So this is me trying to be as accurate as possible in recreating the sound. Then when it came to doing a bit more research, I found out there was many different types of whistles out there. There's obviously 3-tone, there's a single tone, different materials. And from listening back, this is more of a using my own ear. I found that a lot of the sound from the original 484 was very airy and had a very breathy tone to it. So from that, I actually took the sound of a wooden whistle that I found somewhere and recorded that and then pitched that 3 times. So here we have the first tone. So you can hear that there and see that there. Then we have tone 2. And then we have tone 3. So when we play them 3 together, we have... On top of that, I had some feedback from the team, and we decided to add an extra sound just to kind of signify the compression of air, which you would normally get through a whistle sound, because in trains that's what is pushed through. It's usually a compressed air. So, and this layer over here is just that. So it sounds like compressed air, and then when we layer it all together, it just gives it that subtle bit of extra depth to the sound. So you can see it's a lot of this sort of top range. After putting that all together, we end up with this final sound at the bottom here, which is the 484, or my interpretation of the 484 whistle. From there, I then took it into Reaper, and from the last devblog that we did, I then showed you how I turned it into a loop, and we did the same process with this. Yeah, now you can hear it in game. For this recording, in particular the traction motor sounds, I wanted to make sure that I captured the highest quality stuff. So in this example, you can hear the train actually pulling off. So I'll preview this for you. And you can hear the actual clunking sounds from the joints. It's quite a loud sound for the 484, and the actual traction motor is a very unique sound. So in order to edit this, I made a few processes and made a few changes to the last process that we looked at in the previous devblog for the audio. So I'll give you a quick before and after. So for this section here, as you can see, this is the loopable area that I ended with. As you heard that before, this is the after. So this is what it looks like after I've processed everything, and this is what it sounds like. This is quite a different way that I've gone about this. As you can hear, it actually sounds almost as if the train's slowing down, but that is your ears giving you an illusion. So what happens here is if I go back into the history, my first port of call for this sound was to clear away all of the bumps and clunks. And when I get to about here, you'll see I've done that, and they've all disappeared around the recorded area that I want to capture. From there, I then, instead of, as you can hear in the original recording, it's the train pulling away, and that makes the loopings very, very difficult to achieve, because you'll constantly hear this sort of even though your train is going the same speed. So to fix that, what I've done is gone into what's called variable pitch and actually pitched the recording. This line here is the bass frequency of the traction motor. And then here you've got a harmonic, and then here you've got another harmony. And all these harmonies up here, these very, very tiny lines, are all part of either the traction motor or the running sounds. It starts to bleed into everything else then. So as you can see, everything else pitches down. You see the difference from there to there. However, this remains the same. So this was the most important part of the sound, and this is why I chose to focus on that and let everything else degrade as a result, because that was the main focus. When you've looped this, or created this sound and looped it into the game, it becomes very hard to hear these sections, especially with a bit of EQ, as you can see here I've done. And then if I switch to traction motor B, you can see this is actually a different stage of the traction motor in use. So this is actually a higher pitch traction motor, and I'll take it all the way back to its starting sound. You can see it's changed quite a lot. It's a lot more yellower or orange, as you can see, and that means it's just a bit more louder and noisier too. So let's play that back. So yeah, you can hear from about here onward. You can hear that traction motor really reaching a higher speed, and then here it gets really loud at the sort of lowest point of the traction motor's harmonics. So I hear it really trying, and this was a perfect part to turn it into a loop. And again, with some before and after and variable pitching, we've just straightened that out and taken out all of the other sounds that we don't need. Here is the final loop for this. So where you can hear the pops in and out, that's where the loop starts and ends. With using this plugin, obviously I can't really show that off, so you'll be able to hear it in the game, which is really good. Once this is then in the game, we can obviously layer things on top of each other. So once the traction motor is in, we then take the sounds of the actual track joints, of the general running of the sound, the ambiances, and when it's all put together, we get this whole package of sound that includes the traction motors and the nuances of that sound, and that's why we've picked out those specific areas. So we get the best of everything, and we create this final soundscape of the train. And yeah, that's how I created the traction motors for the 484. This has been an overview of some of the sounds and some of the processes gone into the soundscape of the 484. I hope you've enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Yeah, I'll catch you next time. Bye.